Welcome to our week number 11 Twitch live stream for my research methods class. I hope everyone is doing well. I see several of you getting logged in and joining me. I hope, as I said, you're doing good. I can't believe Halloween is next week. It's like a week from tomorrow. When did that happen? It's coming up so quickly. We are in prime candy eating time, that is for sure. So, anyway, I hope you're all doing well. I see a bunch of you logging in. What we will do today is we'll take a little bit of a look at last week. We did have a homework assignment and a discussion, and then we will look at what we have going on this week, which is week number 11, with everything due Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So let's go back and look at last week really quickly before we move forward. Hello, I see some of you saying hello. So last week, week number 10, we did have discussion 10 and a homework assignment. And I think there was a little bit of overlap between the two in the sense that you are looking at, kind of multiple elements that are similar, like identifying independent and dependent variables and looking at threats to internal and external validity, kind of all things that are building upon each other. So let's take a look at, the discussion for last week, discussion number 10. And so I can kind of highlight for you some of the answers and responses. Most of you did a really good job on this. I thought you did a great job of identifying these components. And I have them here like on my document just to kind of help myself walk through it with all of you. So when you were looking at this little experiment done by Professor Beach, right, the independent variable was retrieval cues, and the different conditions were random order, and then the four categories. The dependent variable was memory, and then that was operationalized by the number of words that was recalled. Did Professor Beach use a between or within subjects? Almost all of you got this within subjects, nicely done. And it was definitely a repeated measures design. So the participants were measured on a dependent variable more than once. So before and after each level of the independent variable. Some of the things that you could have talked about in terms of threats to internal validity, the testing threat and the order effect were definitely two of the ones that were probably the most relevant. And then I love that so many of you picked up on the fact that it wasn't overly generalizable because it had a very small sample, and it was also a sample of convenience. So for the most part, again, really nicely done on the discussion. If you lost points, maybe you got one of those wrong or you didn't elaborate. A couple of you gave me very brief responses. So just make sure you're always elaborating and explaining, the answers that you're giving. Don't forget to also reply to a classmate to get those points. It's a very easy 2 points, and you want to always make sure that you're getting them. Some of you are still not doing that every week, so I will continue to remind you in hopes that, I can help you turn that around. The homework assignment, I thought a lot of you did a wonderful job on this as well. And I know it was a lot of questions. They were kind of briefer questions, but most of you did a great job. I would say the biggest place I saw confusion was continuing to identify those levels of the independent variable. So whenever you're trying to figure out those levels, you're asking yourself, what did, the researcher manipulate? And what are the different ways that it was manipulated? So if you look at this experiment that was happening there, right, the first one was environmental order, and it was orderly versus disorderly. So what I saw is a lot of you put environmental order, and you had that piece of it, but then you forgot the second piece, which was to give me the two different conditions of the independent variable. Overall, though, again, I continue to be impressed with what I'm seeing out of all of you. Really nicely done. I know this isn't always the easiest of topics, and we just keep continuing to build on what we've put out there. So I think as long as you had a really strong base, you're probably doing pretty well. So if you have any lingering questions about anything from week number 10, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can, of course, email me if you think of it later. Otherwise, we will move on to week number 11. And again, everything from this week, as always, due by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. And this week, we're looking at chapter 12. And if we click on this here, chapter 12, we're looking at experiments with more than one independent variable. So if you were struggling with identifying the independent variable when there was just one we're adding to it. So if you feel like you're still a little like confused about that, maybe go back a couple of weeks and just go over that concept. We kind of look at it a little bit again here, but we're looking at things like interactions, right? So what happens when we have more than one independent variable, and how can things interact with each other? We're looking at factorial designs. How do you interpret those results with graphs? For example, these graphs are really often quite helpful for looking at if there's a main effect or an interaction effect. On the Beyond the Book page, I have a little bit more, just more about factorial designs, closer look, some advantages and disadvantages. I also found a little video introducing this that I thought might be helpful. It's only a few minutes long, but I thought it could be helpful in explaining it a different way. Sometimes somebody else's words can be helpful, and it might click in a different way for you. And then, of course, as always on the last page, all the terms that you need to know from this chapter for the next exam. So hopefully you have a chance to read through all of that, click on any links, watch any videos, explore all of the stuff that I give you. That's only going to make it easier to understand. I also, of course, gave you my lecture video with PowerPoint slides. So me lecturing to some slides related to this topic. Again, I try to keep these relatively short, but it's my chance to kind of have a little bit more, I don't know, dynamic presentation of the material to you. And hopefully it's in a way that helps you understand it. We do have a discussion this week, and then, of course, an extra credit opportunity for this stream. Next week, we have exam number 3, but you don't need to worry about that till next week, just to kind of put it on your mind, though, and we'll look at APA formatting part 2. So let's take a look at our discussion for this week and make sure that it's clear and that you're feeling good about it. As always, you have my instructions at the top, my little introduction video, which I would recommend watching. I try and give you some helpful tips for things to look out for, kind of pay attention to. Don't forget to really elaborate in your responses. Most of you are getting full points, if not very close to, in your discussion replies. But if you consistently are missing a couple of points, give me just a little bit more, and hopefully that will get you there. But what you're doing here is you're looking at a little experiment related to cell phone use and driving, a number of collisions. We've got more than one independent variable here. So we're talking about a couple of different pieces. What you're going to do is complete these 6 questions related to this short scenario. And here's a little chart with some information to help you. What kind of design is this? Put your answer in the form of a what by what, right? And hopefully this will make a little more sense after you've done your reading. What are the different independent variables and their levels in this study? So break down each independent variable. What is the dependent variable and how is it being measured? I want you to create, either by hand or by computer, a line graph showing me the results from this little thing above. And then you're going to upload that image. So you can do this by hand, that's totally fine, or if you'd rather put it into a program and do it that way, either one is fine. But you're going to make a little graph based on the results you see here, and then upload it for me. Estimate and describe any main effects and interactions in this study. You would need to use statistics if you were calculating something specific, so you're just kind of estimating and describing what you can conclude from the data above, and also your line graph. The line graphs are really, really helpful for seeing if there's an effect or not, and so that will be helpful for you for number 5. And then number 6, what might you conclude from the results of this study? Does experience affect cell phone use while driving? Okay, so that's what you're doing for this one. Again, a lot of layers to this because we have more than one independent variable. So make sure you look at all the examples in the book. They're really going to help you with this, and also with the chart and interpreting those results. Don't forget to also reply to a classmate to get those 2 points. Other than that, that's kind of our main focus for this week, right? We just have the chapter to read and then the discussion for this week. I do have a couple of reminders for you, and then of course an extra credit question. So reminder 1, which I already typed up, don't forget to check your subscription status every week. Remember that they're only good for 30 days. So if it's expired or you no longer have that little football cake next to your name, please renew it. If you're watching this later as a recording, remember you can still get the extra credit if you are subscribed. So take a minute for that. Otherwise, the other big reminder I have for you, if you're looking ahead to next week, let me bring this up here. I'll put this here in the chat. Our next Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, October 30th at 1 o'clock p.m. The day before Halloween. We should virtually eat candy together while we have that live stream. But we will have a live stream next week on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and I'll go over the APA formatting that we have next week, our next exam, and we can talk about some tips and strategies for that as we have in the past. And then we'll be done with 3/4 of the class after next week, which is just crazy to think. So let me give you the extra credit question for today, for this week, show you how to answer it, and then we can call it a day if there aren't any other questions. This is the week number 11 Twitch extra credit question. Okay. What is the difference between a main effect and an interaction effect? What is the difference between a main effect and an interaction effect? And when you're ready to answer that, since we're in week 11, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 11 right here. And then up at the top, click on start assignment. And this will allow you to type your response in the text box and then hit submit. Get your confetti burst and those little trophies. It's hard to see, they like popped up and then they were gone. I think it was trophies. So again, anyway, get going on the stuff for this week. That is the extra credit question, kind of a short and sweet stream. We're at like 15 minutes. I will hang out, of course, for a little while. If you do have any questions for me, this is a wonderful opportunity to ask them if there's something that you're still confused about. Otherwise, get going on everything for this week, and I will hope to see you next week before Halloween on our next Twitch live stream. So thank you so much, everyone. Again, short and sweet. I'm going to minimize my video just so I'm not staring at myself, but I will hang out for a little bit. Thank you as well. Yeah, have a great week. I wish it was cooler. It's so hot today. It's like 91 today, which is just miserable. It was getting so cool, and I was loving that, and now it's hot again. Not to complain, but I'm not a big fan of the heat for sure. So anyway, have a wonderful day, everyone. And as I mentioned, I'll hang out for a little bit if you do have any questions for me. Thank you as well. Thank you all for being here with me. And I am still here, as I mentioned. If you think of any questions, I'll hang up for a couple more minutes, and then you're always welcome to email me if you think of something later.